Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's Sarah. Welcome to another Backstage Pass, which is an opportunity for me to chat with some amazing musicians to get an inside look at a musician's life, the things that inspire them, their creative process, what drives them, and also the behind the scenes stuff that no one else gets to see but musicians. This week, my guest is Caroline Campbell, and I'm going to see if I can bring her in yet. Not here yet. So brief bio on Caroline. If you don't know who she is, classically trained, she's soloed with many of the great orchestras of the world. She's been nicknamed the violinist to the stars and handpicked to play duets with world-renowned artists including Sting, Andrea Bocelli, Steven Tyler, Adam Levine. Oh, and she's here. Let me bring her in. And I think we have her connecting. And hey,
Hi there. How's it
worked.
going? Yay, I've never done this before. And yes, stop while you're talking about me. No, I'm just kidding.
I was introing you. Wait, let me finish this.
Oh,
slide.
okay.
Okay, so handpicked to play duets with, I'm reading, world-renowned artists including Sting, Andrea Bocelli, Steven Tyler, Adam Levine, Michael Bublé, Rod Stewart, David Foster, and Seal. Regularly tours with the jazz trumpeter Chris Bodie. You've recorded and with film music, with Hunger Games, Frozen. You've recorded and performed with countless artists from Barbra Streisand to Beyonce. You recently debuted Yamaha's newest electric violin, and you maintain a schedule of classical concerts as well. And you have a degree in symbolic systems and sociology, all of which I want to get to.
Okay.
So that's a lot of stuff. So let me start at the beginning. So how did you start with the violin? Was that your chosen instrument? Was it given to you as a musical family?
Yeah, so I started when I was 3. My grandparents traveled a lot and brought back a tiny violin, I think actually literally from China.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a music lover, so wanted me to do music, but she didn't really play. Like it's not a family of musicians, which is kind of unusual. So I started playing when I was 3, and she put me in the Suzuki preschool program.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went like every day. She dropped me off like before she went to work. And I guess I kind of took to it. I don't remember because that was too long ago. But I think maybe my teachers that kind of discovered I had a good ear, which lets you progress more quickly because
Mm-hmm.
your tuning is better. Maybe you just mimic things better.
Mm-hmm.
So I started when I was 3, and I think started taking privately when I was about 4, and it just kind of launched from there.
Mm-hmm. So when was the point where you thought, okay, I want to do this for my life rather than I'm a kid and I can do this really well? So when was that switch?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I do feel like, again, like my path is not the traditional one where I always knew I wanted to be a violinist. Like
Mm-hmm.
not at all. I think it was when I was like 14, I was like, wow, I really don't have time to do track and student government and
Mm-hmm.
do these classes. So okay, wait, I have to start choosing. And I did choose music. I mean, I was like, no, I want to do violin. Okay, I've got to protect the time to practice.
Mm-hmm.
I think instead of it just being like a lightning bolt, it was kind of a gradual decision.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
actually after, I mean, we can get to it as well, but you're right, I did kind of jump off the conservatory track in
Mm-hmm.
normal school. And after finishing there, I said, am I going to go do a doctorate in psychology? And I was extremely excited about possibly doing that with a certain professor. Or am I going to go back to music, but maybe in a different way that had been kind of laid out for me, or the only path that I understood, which was
Mm-hmm.
extremely traditional and classical. So that was probably the moment when I said, okay, I'm going to actually do this and pursue this for a career kind of on my own terms, as opposed to just
Right.
following the path that my teachers, the competitions and the concerts and all that, which is great. But so it was kind of gradual. Sorry, it was a super long answer.
Yeah, no. It's interesting because I mean, you started with this incredibly like classical training. You were at the Cleveland Institute of Music, which, for those of you who don't know, one of the great conservatories of this country, studying with David Cerrone. And you were there just a year.
So
Before.
actually, I went for 2 years of high school. There's a young artist program,
Okay.
which has kids from, well, it has about, I think when I was there, maybe 8 or 9 students. I actually don't know if the program still exists. I hope so. It's basically like leaving home and doing a super serious music education like early. So I went there as a junior in high school, 2 years of undergrad. And then when I was thinking about, am I going to continue on here? I spoke with my teacher, David Cerrone, who's awesome, legend. And he said, well, rather than leaving, because I was thinking about, just trying to figure out what my options were, he said, how about you also study every other week with Don Weilerstein, and we'll take different lessons, and their styles, like couldn't be more different. Cerrone's like super buttoned up and like
Mm-hmm.
stern and very kind of intimidating, but like in a very gentlemanly way. And Weilerstein is like mad professor, like, you know, reputation for putting an ice cream cone in his pocket, like genius,
Mm-hmm.
but just very like couldn't have been two more
Yeah.
approaches. Yeah, sorry, I'm just
No,
this is like
that's
Sarah, this is
okay.
gonna be like a bad date where like I talk too much and you're just really good at follow-up questions and I just keep talking.
I love it when you talk. I love to hear stories, and I think the
Okay.
viewers do too. So I'm just gonna keep asking you questions. So after when you left Cleveland, you went to Stanford. So what was that decision? And you, let's see, what did
Yeah.
you what did you study at Stanford?
So that was symbolic systems, which
Okay, okay.
so I was leaving Cleveland, and you're right, I'd played really seriously. I had just competed in the Indianapolis violin competition, which is just a big one. So much repertoire, so much preparation. I kind of joked that I was spending my life in a windowless practice room. I mean, you love it, but it's a lot of work, and
Yeah.
I think I wasn't burned out because that sounds very negative. I think I just was ready for just jumping in a new direction. And actually,
Mm-hmm.
my mom even said, you know, if you're going to do something else, don't just stop music, just go for something else, which I love. And so applied to Stanford, didn't think I'd get in. They let me in, which is awesome. And I just thought, don't make a plan for the future. Just take things that interest you and the path will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
And so the classes I took, and so this major is 60% computer science, then with some logic, linguistics, psychology, and philosophy. And it's a great major. Ended up being actually I think the most highly paid major kind of out of Stanford because it was just when the tech stuff was all booming. I didn't know all this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I got actually recruited by Google to go work there because I had the combination of kind of coding, but also a bit of kind of some psychology.
Way. Wow.
Yeah. But I wasn't ready to leave Stanford because that was a pretty great place to go. I just loved it. And my sister was there at the same time. We overlapped for 2 years.
That's fun.
She's younger. Yeah. And so I stuck around and actually did a master's in psychology, but for psychology you had to do a thesis, and I didn't want to. So I did the master's in sociology and petitioned to have all my psychology classes count towards sociology.
Okay.
So a lot of busy work to be a little bit lazy about not doing a big final thesis. But anyway, yeah, my time there was it was awesome. Like to be surrounded by people that it's so diverse, and the interests and people are so hardworking. I think just being in that environment there couldn't be anything kind of more nutritious.
That's a good way. I like nutritious. No, I agree with you. I mean, I went to conservatory after I went to college. I went to Harvard. So all of my friends there were not musicians, you know, and it was like this diversity of education and understanding, and that network you create. So it is nourishing. I love that. So you were nourished at Stanford. Does that education inform you as a musician? Do you think you approach music or the industry differently because you have that experience?
I mean, I would like to think so. Who knows? I mean, the fact that I seriously considered, you know, maybe law school, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. My identity is not just solely in the music, but also I really like to relate with the world around. And I think a background in psychology makes me especially kind of aware and sensitive to maybe what audience members are going through. So it's kind of increased empathy about if I'm going to create an arrangement, let me sit, rather than just saying what musically is most perfect, let me customize this kind of for audiences who may not be as like technically trained to create experience, because concerts are experiences, right? So I think it does inform a bit, and it also means that I have my interests are fairly varied. You know, it's not just based in classical music. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's
so I have a viewer question. This is a very broad question. Who has inspired you and why?
Oh no!
Question.
Oh no! I hate big vague questions.
I
know. Oh gosh, that's a really good question. I mean, I can answer it like a few part. Of course, great players are the ones that help form your sense of who you want to be. But I think also, and this is actually, I'll bring up someone that you and I, you know, have both worked with. So you worked with Sting, and I've been so lucky to perform with him and you know, travel a little bit with him, not as probably as much as you have, but something I find him someone extremely inspiring personally for some reasons. But here's the example that I'd like to give, which I hopefully will make sense. When we were doing a concert in the Republic of Georgia, we were doing a televised concert. The afternoon was the rehearsal with like orchestra, but it was really, really, really hot. And so most of the orchestra just was like, no, the instruments, we can't do it. And I remember Sting could have just said, okay, well, no rehearsal, we'll wing it. But he went up there with like half an orchestra with, you know, kind of a weird energy. And I felt like did the full rehearsal, gave it like good energy, you know, and he didn't need to do that. He's the one that knows these songs the best.
Right.
And yet for the respect of the sound guys, the lighting guys, the orchestra, he came in and he brought it to a you know, and I just was like, wow, like that's the type of artist I want to be. You don't just try hard when it counts and when all eyes and cameras are on you, but hopefully you try to, yeah, you show some really good kind of energy and devotion to this whole process of all the people involved. Yeah, I loved that. That was like a very powerful moment because he's so famous and so successful, and he doesn't need to do that. He doesn't even need to show up for rehearsal. He gets a mic check, right? So that, and then I think also becoming a mom myself, I think the role that my mom played in my upbringing, I just realized it's not just helping with practicing. It's so much more than that. It requires, I think, such a support system. And if some people do it without, great, like kudos to them. I just realized how much she like worked but sacrificed, kind of helped stand behind me but didn't like push. It was just it was a very gentle, consistent kind of nudge to acknowledge what I wanted to do and to help make that happen. And we didn't grow up with a lot of money, or, you know, we grew up partly in Nevada. It's not a musical mecca, right, like New York or whatever. So I think also I'd say that, you know, all that she did for me also very much inspires me.
Oh, I love that. So, okay, pivoting again. So you had this classical background and then you went to Stanford, you know, got almost hired by Google. And then, but now you're really known as a crossover artist is where you found a lot of, you know, your fame and your work now. So what was that process, given your training and then having gotten a master's in psychology? How does one make that transition? Was it conscious, or did it kind of happen step by step?
It was not conscious. I had no idea. Like, if even today, if you'd asked, you know, I mean, 5 years ago, where are you going to be? I wouldn't have been able to predict these things that happened. After I finished Stanford, I moved to New York briefly with my now ex-husband, and we just went there. I said, well, music New York, I'll just move and somehow try to figure out something, I don't know. And then he got a job offer actually in Pasadena, so in LA. And I said, but what am I going to do with music in LA? Is there music in LA? Because I didn't know. My mind was so small-minded. I don't know about film music and pop music and all this stuff. And he said, well, let's just move. And if you don't like it, we'll just move back. I said, well, that sounds doable. Sure. So we moved. And I remember we just first moved. I didn't know anyone really, didn't really know what I was going to do. Sat in the car and just kind of cried. I was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. But pretty soon connected with a few musicians and was like lucky to kind of get in the studio scene. So some film scoring, some sessions. I had like my best girlfriend from Cleveland, actually, who was in that young artist program with me. We ended up forming a quartet with a couple of friends, and we kind of would just play with some artists, including like Rihanna, and just we had a really kind of fun, cool assortment of projects. We built some of our own arrangements, did some shows, but like in bars, not in concerts. So I think just that experience of just kind of letting go of all the classical rules, that probably just prepped me just to be ready for different genres and to be comfortable in different genres. I didn't know what the bridge of a pop song was when I moved to LA, and now we use the terminology all the time. And then I think it was having played in that quartet, got kind of plucked by David Foster to go try for something, and then it kind of just leads from there. He put me with like William Joseph, and then Chris Bode's wonderful violinist injured herself, and so I stepped in for her very last minute. So that led to these performances with Chris, and it just kind of, and then David said, hey, what are you doing next week? Could you do this PBS special with Bocelli in Portofino? And I said, oh, okay. Oh, I'm really busy. I've got laundry. No. So, so I think it just kind of gradually went that way. And it's such a comfortable lane for me. Like I love trying to be very technically precise and be very musical. But also love to be open-minded. When I had the opportunity to work with Steven Tyler, and he called me and said, hey, Caroline, I'm going to do this song. Like, can you play some fiddle on it? And I said, well, yes, of course. I'm thinking, I don't know how to fiddle. I don't know how to arrange a fiddle song, but I think you say yes and then do the work to make sure you show up and do it. And that's what happened. So I worked with a fiddler and we worked on the arrangement. I got coaching. I felt like I approached it very humbly. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I need all the help I can get. And we did it, and it was great. And I'm so glad that I just kind of jumped off the deep end in these different directions, because it's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah. No, it is to have all these different genres, and it, you know, not to get stuck in a lane, but to be able to explore a lot of other things and a lot of artists. And it really does expand your mind as an artist, but also as a person. I think it's incredibly gratifying. But given all these genres that you work in, and I ask this of a lot of musicians who do a lot of crossover stuff, do you approach music making differently because it's a different genre? Is it a different way that you look at it, or to prepare for it, or is it all under one umbrella of music?
That's a good question. I think I probably do approach it a little differently. I think with classical, there's such an emphasis on just perfection and precision and preparation and rehearsal. And with a lot of these pop things, I mean, even with Bocelli, there's times I never rehearse a piece with him until we're on stage at the concert.
Oh, wow. And
so, yes.
That's stressful.
Well, the conductor says, do you need to rehearse this piece? I mean, I'm like, what's my, oh, no. It's going to be great. But again, I've done my research. I've played it with him on YouTube, like with 10 different versions. I feel like I come at it ready for all these curveballs because it's not the classical rules. So I feel like I try to approach it with the same, hopefully, standard of playing. I try. But I think I go in knowing the variables are all different. It might be really, really cold in an arena because maybe it's a hockey. And so I've got to just in my head not get freaked out that my fingers feel like claws instead of hands. So yes and no. I think I approach it with the same, hopefully, like standards of trying to make it good, make my part work with everything. But also just realize the nuances in terms of the genres and try to be prepared for anything.
Right. No, I like the idea of like preparing by listening to 10 YouTube videos and playing along. And I think it's interesting because people might see you on stage and assume, oh, this is great. They're all on stage just emoting and having a great time. But there is actually a whole process to preparing that. And even showing up to rehearsal, you have a process. Which,
for sure. It's fun. Like, I mean, what you mentioned these duets with Bocelli, normally they say, okay, can you play this duet? And I say, sure, but there's no violin part written. So then it's for me to say, what do I play? How do I not step on the vocal? How do I make it enough of a feature that it's not just kind of, I'm not just playing in unison with the first violin. So it's kind of, you know, there's a multi-step process to hopefully arrive at an arrangement that works. And I'm so lucky that they keep asking me to do this because it means that hopefully they're happy and this process has paid off, you know?
Yeah. So you've collaborated with so many people, and what are some of the artists that you've really enjoyed working with? What is the process like working, especially with an artist of a different genre? And have you ever been surprised by anything in the collaboration? I'm sure there's a lot of stories about that. So
I'm always surprised. No. Let me think. Oh my gosh, I've been super lucky. You're so right. Well, so I don't know, you know this cellist Hauser that he's part of the two cellos. He's so fantastic. It was actually on my bucket list to someday like perform together. I'm just such a fan. He's so technically good, musically just so kind of over the top, but like, and it works. It's amazing. And so I was really excited when I got like an email from him saying, hey, do you want to come to this concert? I'm like, define come to the concert. Like, wait, like, and so, so I got to do a few songs with him. Again, very little rehearsal. He's such a ham. So he surprised me. He's making all these funny faces in rehearsal. Like, it was very laid back. And he did exactly the same thing on stage. I thought he kind of toned it down. Oh, yes, maybe even worse.
Wow.
And I showed up at the rehearsal to his house with like a couple other people, the other artists. And he shows up just in his underwear with like a cigarette. Just opens the door. I'm like, okay, keep your eyes out. Like, so that was entertaining, but he's great. He's just a hoot. Really, really fun. Yeah, you're so right. I've been like lucky to do everything from like, you know, Barbra Streisand and just to be part of that tour. So it's one thing to perform with someone. It's another thing to tour because you have backstage moments, right? Like, say with Bocelli, he loves to come to the dressing room and just play on my violin and just jam. He's just always wanting to make music, which is really, really fun.
Wow.
I'll try to think of other things that surprise me. I always have like like mishaps where my dress breaks on stage, or the power goes out in the whole concert.
Right.
You know, there's things like that which become very memorable, or you know, maybe for bad reasons, but
For bad, yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
I feel like I feel like this is a bad date. I feel like can I put these questions back to you?
No, I'm asking the questions of you.
Okay.
So being on tour, like this notion of like, I remember being on the Sting tour, and I think we had 49 shows, and that's a lot of shows. I mean, and as a classical musician, you approach something as, you know, like it needs to be different every time. And I think we're not in the mindset, at least when I began, to repeat things so much. So, you know, if you are doing multiples, and I'd say in a classical run, 4 is maybe the maximum, right? Of shows that you do. If you're doing 20 or 30, what's that like for you? And what do you do for yourself to keep it fresh?
Right. I actually think that's one thing I've loved about touring, is that it's one thing to play a piece in a practice room. You can get it pretty consistent. But when you have lights in your face, you've got, you know, maybe cold something, maybe your string just detuned, maybe your flight was late, so you're a little frazzled, the steamer was, you know, there can be other things. And I'm not trying to bring up negative things, but I think that performing, and just even the nerves and everything going on, that's a totally different animal, and it's really hard to practice that. So for me, performing has allowed me to get to know like my performance strategy,
Right.
like, or just like my style, or kind of what happens to me physically. I know that my right shoulder tends to come up. I tend to overplay if I'm nervous. Like I play a little louder aggressively. So I have to actively try to breathe and bring the shoulder down and try to, you know, try to calm that kind of reflex to nerves. So, okay. So I think practice performing is so important. I think we get in the practice room, practice your passages, completely different thing than getting on stage. Can't stop, can't go back, can't show it on your face like, whoops, what just happened?
Right.
You know, so you get a lot of chances to do that. And so so I actually kind of love it, being maybe an inner perfectionist. I love going, okay, I see my reactions, I see where I get nervous, I'm going to change that bowing, because with nerves happening right there, I don't have the control that I want to deliver that. So I'm going to change the bowing to give myself more air in the sound, so that I can like hopefully have a better performance of this piece, which maybe if it was fourth in the program, it wouldn't be. But especially a lot of what I do is like one song and then one song. So it's like always kind of battling that initial burst of adrenaline. Keeping it fresh. No, you're right. Like especially I played the Blue Note with Chris Bodie.
Right.
So, did you ever go to that?
That's how many shows over
He does like
the holiday?
56 shows in like yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
he does 2 shows a night. I've only actually done it for maybe like a week or 10 days in a row, because I've got kids, because Santa comes to California, so like you know, but he does it that many shows in a row. It's got to be, it's a marathon, right? It's like you are in the rhythm of it. Even for me, just coming in for 7 or 10 days, 2 shows a night, I think you have to find something that inspires you. Sometimes I'll find like a meaning of a song, like something will happen in my life, and I'll try to like channel that and find some kind of tenderness or some sadness or something to imagine that, or imagine, you know, you find out the purpose of a song and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so dark, and I can kind of feel that. But also actually, honestly, what sometimes helps, especially like at a place like the Blue Note, which is so intimate, is when you have people in the audience that you know, right? So I'm like, oh, my family's here, or this friend is here, or oh my gosh, Joshua Bell is in the second seat. Like, no! Oh my God! Which happens. That happened the first time. Yeah, this happens all the time. It's so nerve-wracking. They have violinists in the audience. David Garrett's there. I mean, everyone's, it's just, oh, it's a little terrifying. But my job is not to play well. My job is to look very, very calm under pressure and to smile. I'm not a care in the world.
Which is funny, because I think when people see, you know, artists on stage, especially one who carries herself so well, and like you have this elegant presence, and this assumption is, oh, that's how the person is, not that there's all this stuff going on behind it, you know. And as you said, you could be freaked out because Joshua Bell's in the audience, or, you know, you could have like had food poisoning in the morning, but you have to show up on stage and do your thing. So
it's so true. It's so true. It doesn't matter what's happening. You can't just go, okay, here's my list of excuses why this is happening. Let me just give you disclaimers. Here you go. So yeah, you're so right.
A listener question: favorite genre you love playing?
Okay, so probably my favorite stuff to play is like the sad, pretty stuff. I think
Oh.
I'm a little like romantic, like heart on sleeve, and
Uh-huh.
the painfully beautiful melodies just move me. I mean,
Hmm.
yes, I love rocking out. I love fun stuff, of
Mm-hmm.
course. Um, but I probably just love, like, I just think it's so satisfying when there's like beautiful harmonies, and then
Mm-hmm.
you've got some colors going, you've got some cool tension in the bow, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so, I feel so present. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I probably love that. So with the passing of Morricone,
Mm-hmm.
that was, I felt that because I was, when I'm like in an empty hall, say between a rehearsal and a concert, like in a concert hall, it's empty. I'll literally just by myself, like play Gabriel Zobo, just the melody
Mm-hmm.
by myself, and you just hear it like go up to the, the top balcony, and
Yeah.
it's so simple, but there's something so beautiful about the simplicity of a
Mm.
melody. What about you? What do you like?
Gosh, that's really, I'm not used to having the questions turned on me. I guess I really don't know. It really depends. I mean, it's a mood thing. I mean,
On
I
your
tend to
mood.
agree with you about, I love those simple melodies where there is so much in it, um, that it doesn't need to be externalized in a wild way, but it needs to resonate. And I
Yeah.
love that feeling of resonance and
Mm-hmm.
connecting to audiences with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing dazzling, just something really beautiful where you
Mm-hmm.
communicate a simple thought and that comes back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, that's the most fun, to really feel that I've impacted even one person who's listening, to feel that they're heard in a way. And
Absolutely.
I feel what they feel, and the music feels what they feel. And
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty powerful for me. So
And I
whatever causes that, that's my favorite thing.
and there's something cool, and I think it's probably to what you're saying, when you're playing and you feel like people are drawn in rather than you
Mm-hmm.
needing to slap them with a really loud, a lot of sound and
Mm-hmm.
busyness, when there's silences and there's pauses and there's moments to breathe and wait for the
Mm-hmm.
next note, and that, feeling that together is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's it's really moving. And I've been super lucky to sometimes take pieces that I love, melodies I love, and then rearrange them or have them orchestrated and then
Mm-hmm.
perform them. So something I
Mm-hmm.
love, and then to get to, put it, to have it be orchestrated and say, okay, here's a concert and you can play it. That's awesome too, because it's like this little child that I care about, that's like dear to me, and then to
Mm-hmm.
it kind of come to life or something.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So let's see, I have questions. Pre-concert rituals. How do you get ready for a performance?
Oh, I'm not the nicest person right before it goes.
Oh, really? Are you one of those like stressed out, don't talk to me?
No, not to anyone except for maybe like my fiance. He's like, "Can I get you anything?" I'm like what? He's like, "Okay, that's pretty."
Oh
No,
man.
I'm kidding. No, you know what? I think I like to warm up. I don't eat a lot. I tend to feel like that makes me
Mm-hmm.
sluggish, and I like to feel very like up. And I don't know. I feel more focused that way. I like to warm up. I think actually probably just like getting ready and doing kind of a little hair and makeup is so quiet that
Mm-hmm.
I can just kind of be still, kind of quiet with my
Mm-hmm.
thoughts. So that's probably a weird type of meditation, which sounds very silly and vain, but I think it's
Oh,
part of
I
the.
totally get it. I totally get
Okay.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that, and I do, yeah, I like to have warm fingers, but I also
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that sometimes you're playing, say, an outdoor venue, and you can't warm
Right.
up right there because you're right next to the audience. They're like, oh, she can't make noise. I'm like, for the next 8 minutes, I've got to stand here and just,
Mm-hmm.
which is a
Like blow
little.
on your fingers and
Oh, I tried. There was like in Madison Square Garden, I had like a hair dryer right off stage. I was like,
really.
well,
Oh
because
man.
it's an ice rink.
Oh,
So,
that's
and
right.
I'm barefoot. So my feet are on the ice. On the ice,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get the, hair and makeup and meditation. I have to say, like, I love waiting to put the falsies on,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you
yeah.
have to be like so still and calm. So that's my meditation, is like,
Right.
yeah, applying false
Nice.
lashes. I know
I
girls
like
have their things.
I like to be ready early and just be dressed. I don't want that kind of like
Hmm.
flurry at the last second. Like if it
Right.
happens, that's fine. But I
Hmm.
try to prepare everything ahead of time enough. Like I've planned out my day. I plan out when I wash my hair. I plan out
Hmm.
all these things. I plan out a dress I can bring in case the steamer is broken at the
Hmm.
venue, or these things, so that kind of hopefully there's very few
Hmm.
loops, thrown at me or
Right,
something
right.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I hesitate to go here, but I think it's interesting,
Mhm.
talking about, steamers and dresses and doing hair and makeup. There's a lot that women have to do that the guys don't really do. And, there's a maintenance of an image, and, that becomes a part of the performance. But I think,
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes I struggle with it,
Right.
and, wondering, I don't feel like doing my hair today. you know,
Yeah.
but the audience might care. So do you ever find yourself sort of thinking about the fact that you have to sort of
Reason.
maintain the two things?
Oh, sorry. I thought I couldn't tell if you were still talking. I think we had a reception issue just for a second. No, I totally hear you. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. I think there was a delay. Yeah, I think it's tricky because there is an expectation in concerts for there to be a visual element, and I know that that plays in. So I think to ignore it just doesn't take advantage of an opportunity to connect with the audience in a way, because maybe if you're wearing a romantic dress, it just kind of heightens this experience, even though yes, it would sound, maybe you could have the same performance in jeans with your hair tied back, but maybe something about the, you know, the elegance, or maybe it just enhances kind of this the concert experience, which is weird. I struggle with it too, but I'm lucky in that the concerts that I do, and maybe a lot of the ones that you do, are very music based. It's not backup dancers and
right
and G-strings and fire and people coming from the ceiling. Let's not get any ideas. Let's not do that for the next show. But generally it's very much based in music. Like Streisand gets on stage, it's just her. There's no bells and whistles. I mean, do you know what I mean? And there's so I feel like at least it's us, and you know, at least we can enjoy that it's just the music that we're doing. Yes, I guess also like getting a little dressed up maybe shows respect for the audience too. I mean, absolutely. I have to believe that for sure.
No, I like the idea of, you know, all of the external elements as aiding the music, and then it's part of the larger experience, because you said a concert's an experience, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I utterly agree. And I think a lot of, you know, people from the classical genre tend to think of it more as a single musical expression, whereas, you know, it's the entirety of what you feel and see and hear in a concert, not just, you know, something as simple as listening to music. So
right.
You know, that's what makes live music special, right? Is the spectacle of it, and seeing people doing these marvelous things live in a beautiful way. So
you're so right. And that's one fun thing too now about social media or about Instagram, is that people can see you on stage, but also see you off stage, and see you maybe home or or practicing, or all these different situations where before social media, you'd only see maybe this person on stage once ever, or once every couple years or something. So yeah.
I'm reading some questions here. Wow, there's a lot of them. Is it difficult to have people to see backstage after a concert? Oh,
you know what? Actually, I love it. After a concert, I love it. Beforehand, I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit like, I kind of just want my space, and I don't like to be the bad guy, right?
Right.
I want to always welcome people, but after a concert, I love it, and it's fun to connect and just get their feedback and see what parts of the show. Literally, I'll say, what did you like from the show? Like nothing to do with me. I'm just curious because I've seen the show, but to see it through new eyes, I want to hear what got them, because sometimes, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah, you're probably.
So speaking of venues, you know, Madison Square Garden being an ice rink, so you've been like all over, from Carnegie Hall to Sydney Opera House to the Blue Note, and you've played for like hundreds of thousands of people. So is there a favorite venue that you have? Can you choose one? Or, I mean, it's sort of hard to choose one, but.
Okay, you know what? I think it's too hard to choose one, because it's not just the venue anymore, because now we have like replicated sound, and we got mics, and the sound could be so different based on the sound, or also depending on maybe the audience or the occasion. There's so many variables. Like I did something recently, or maybe a year or two ago, I can't remember, but played like Happy Birthday on a little plane, you know, concert to concert, and it was a woman turning 92, and played her Happy Birthday. And you know what? That was my favorite venue, because she didn't, you know, no one, it was just no expectations. It was just a moment of connection and using music to laugh and celebrate and bring a little group of people together. So something like that is unexpected and small, but precious. The big venues are impressive. So yeah, I'm always like really, really honored. That I did a concert in Brazil with Bocelli a couple years ago in a Parasita at the Basilica, and he actually did a free concert for 100,000 people, all of spiritual, beautiful music, which of course I'm like,
having a moment. Yeah.
So something like that is powerful, because you know the location is so important, deeply important to people, to, you know, Catholics and people of religion, and then just to have it be free of charge. And some of the people in the orchestra and the choir were young people, were high school or college kids, and so they're I'm connecting with them, even running into them like
Mm-hmm.
at the hotel gym and
Right,
stuff.
right,
So,
right.
so that whole experience, like, you know, was really, really powerful on a musical and kind of a personal level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting that a lot of the things you're saying about music is the personal connection and the
Mm-hmm.
smaller moments where you do feel connection with people, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's such an important part of communicating music and what we do, and essentially that's what music is, right? To speak a language that everyone understands. And
It totally is. It's to your point. Mr. Cerrone, so the violin professor
mm-hmm.
at Cleveland, once asked me at a lesson. He said, "You know, Caroline, what business are we in?" And I said,
Mm-hmm.
"Business? Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?" Like, he's like, what's our field?" And I said, "Entertainment." And he said, you know, and he said, "No, communication. Remember
There
that."
you go.
So it's exactly right. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
communication is by definition a two-way street, right?
Exactly,
So
exactly.
we're in touch with the audience, or we feed off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm imagining doing concerts for empty halls, and
Mm-hmm.
yes, the music will be beautiful, but if no one hears it, is it still, you know, I don't know. It's a really weird time.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I'm sure this is true for you as well, but I think most performers feed off of the energy of an audience, because you can feel, even for me, I'm facing away from the audience, but I can feel the energy if it's like is really amped up and people are really into it. And that sort of feeds the energy on stage. So yeah, imagine what that's like to not have that visceral audience in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff online?
Not too much. I
Okay.
mean, I recorded like a song that I wanted to do somewhere out there from American Tail, like
Mm-hmm.
a song, used it in arrangement, like just I love that song, again, kind of a romantic. Recorded that. Done a couple little fun things.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much. I've been with, been with my kids and
Mm-hmm.
doing some music stuff with them. I'm now trying to figure it out without things looking like they're going to come back. I'm kind
Right.
of trying to figure out how I can kind of still do music and, you know, stay in music,
Mm-hmm.
but be like true to myself and not kind of feel like I'm selling out, because it's not really my personality to do
Mm-hmm.
concerts every night from my living room. It's just not.
Right, right, right.
I don't know. It's
Mm-hmm.
not maybe my style, but yeah. I don't know. What about you?
Well,
What's
I
going on
mean,
with you?
this is like you can give a concert in your living room every day if you wanted to.
Yeah,
You,
that's
you
true.
don't, but I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
can't. My instrument is people,
yeah,
and orchestras are are gatherings of people to begin with. So I don't
yeah.
anticipate that coming back so soon. So it's been
Right,
super challenging having my instrument taken away.
right. Absolutely.
And my communication goes three ways, because it's, well, two ways, because I'm actually doing for an audience what I'm doing with the orchestra as well. So
Right,
there's
right,
a wordless exchange going on where we're talking to each other, and
right,
we
right.
create something that talks to the audience. So not having that it's a really weird position to be in, because
Well, and they don't see all your preparation off stage and maybe
mm-hmm,
planning of programs and all the just everything that goes into just what they see on stage. There's so many steps and so many
mm-hmm,
hours of work, right? And
yeah,
people don't see that, and maybe that's also kind of just on hold for right now. Or
mm-hmm,
I don't know. I find it really hard to just randomly pick up the violin and practice
mm.
every day. I wish I were that type of player. Like I wish, but
Right, right,
I'm not. Like, I feel like I do so well with goals. Like, if I've got a deadline,
mm-hmm,
I will work all day, like not
mm-hmm,
even, I'll forget to eat and it'll get dark and everything.
right.
But
Oh,
if
I
I don't
totally
have
get you with
anything
that.
to work for, I just, okay. I
Yeah.
just kind of, I don't know.
Well, it's
I
hard to
don't
have
know.
no, it's hard to have direction if you don't have like a point that you're reaching for, like a goal. And yeah, it's true. It's
Yeah.
sort of hard to keep up everything when you're, everything is really up in the air right now in terms of
Yeah.
what we can do. But so what keeps you grounded then?
I've got kids, and I think that's probably the biggest thing. I've got family nearby. I've got like a wonderful fiance, a great
Mm-hmm.
support system. I'm just, I've got so much kind of love. I feel like my cup is my bucket's very full.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so all this is, I don't know, yeah, we'll see how things go, but it definitely, I miss it. And so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
does heighten
Mm-hmm,
why I do what I do and how much I enjoy it.
mm-hmm.
And yes, there's a sacrifice. Like, when I leave to play concerts, I'm leaving my kids, and
Right, right.
you can't help but struggle with that and try to
Mm-hmm,
find balance. But I think probably now, having this time at home, I also realize it's very healthy to
mm-hmm,
do that, have that part of me, without them, and to also show them that you can, invest in your own passions and work and get
mm-hmm,
creative
mm-hmm.
and get yourself out there. So
Speaking to that, I mean, as you mentioned, I don't think people think about an artist as a mother and your responsibilities at home. And, when you are touring, what's that process like? And do you consider your professional, well, like what you say yes to, because of your kids? And, there's a lot of considerations I don't think that people don't really think of.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely a big thing. I have a rule that I will never be gone 14 days or more, regardless. So if it's a 13-day tour and they say we might add something, I'm like, well, if you add one travel day, like I'm out. So I'm so sorry. Like that's just my rule. Otherwise, I feel like it's so easy to have it be a movable thing. So I have that. It's so rare that I'm gone that long. That just that just happened like once. But I do have that in place. And then also just small decisions. I almost always take red eyes so that I am at home during the day and I fly during the night. And so, yeah, that's tricky to show up, land. I remember actually, I remember on the flight to Cleveland, or playing with Cleveland Orchestra, had rehearsal at, I don't remember I think it was like 10 a.m. or something.
Oh, God.
And I had a window seat and I was like, okay, perfect. I'll just try to sleep. And then someone said, would anyone volunteer? This 4-year-old girl has been separated from her mom. Could anyone swap their window seat so that she could sit with her mom? And I sat there going, oh, no, don't do it. Okay, I'll do it. But I remember going, then to rehearsal the next morning. And it's fine. It's like, I don't know. That's all worth it. So I think that also on the Streisand tour, we were performing every 3 nights because that's how often she sings.
Okay.
Perform wherever she was, fly home the next day, spend the night there, take a red eye the following night, play the concert, fly home the next day.
Oh, wow.
And just do that the whole tour.
How long was that tour?
Oh, that was only like 4 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy. It was really fun. I'm so glad I did it, but I don't know if anyway, there was a lot of extra travel to try.
Yeah, that's a lot of traveling.
And also, I won't take concerts on my kids' like birthdays, or I always work around the first day of school or certain things I'm trying. But unfortunately, a lot of kid activities are planned much more close to the time they happen than concerts, like 9 to 12 months or 6 to 12 months or whatever. So anyway, it's definitely a balance. It's like a sailboat. You don't just go ding, you kind of this way, like, okay, I'm gone way too much. Okay, whoa, I'm home. But you get there. So
I love that. Let's see, a couple more questions. What were you, a viewer says, what were you scheduled to do when the pandemic hit?
Yeah, so I had a bunch of concerts, everything from a June tour with Bocelli. I had some Kentucky Derby, a private event. Yeah, which was going to be fun. Just a private, like I was going to kind of do my own show at a private.
Were you going to wear a hat?
Oh, yeah. I don't think I could play with one, but no. I mean, maybe I'd love to go. So I had that. I had a big private event for McDonald's, and it's for 18,000 people. And that
wow.
That would have been fun. I had a bunch of dates with Chris Bodie. I had I was doing a charity event in Indiana, raising money for kind of sexual abuse victims, and so it's just a total variety of performances. There's a little recital in Monaco, and just all these things. And I think everything in the foreseeable future is just kind of, I'm going to just say it's just delayed. It's not canceled.
Right.
Delayed. Actually, the one thing I was excited about was I did have another concert with Hauser in London and Berlin, and it was going to be filmed live like we did with Croatia. And so, I was really looking forward to that because it was at the Royal Philharmonic, and it was going to be, I would have had to practice a lot for that, but that would have been super fun and worth it.
But that's been rescheduled, delayed.
Everything. I think everything right now is just a little, so we'll see. Yep. Who knew, right?
The challenging time to be an artist, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So last question, even not considering the pandemic, and let's assume that it'll be over at some point. What are you looking forward to in the future, more as a global thing, not just as a single concert, but what kinds of things are you looking forward to?
Gosh, you know what? I think I really, really love kind of arranging new pieces and then bringing them to fruition and then performing them. So I now have this little catalog, partly because Bocelli will say, can you play a 4 to 5 minute virtuoso piece, but not very difficult to put together, so it can be just put together in one quick run through at rehearsal. I mean, and
right,
fast and virtuosically, because he's going to be singing ballads. So can you get the audience a little more energetic?
Okay.
So it's like and I'm like, there's nothing in the repertoire that really meets that. So, okay, what do? I need to go create a piece, you know? So I don't know if you know that, so I've created a bunch for that, and then just other things. So I now kind of have this whole little stack of repertoire that like I kind of help create, and maybe, I don't want to say own, but do you know what I mean? Like no other violinist would offer these pieces because I created them. And that's like, there's something super satisfying about doing that, because I'm not trying to play something that's already been played a bunch. It's like I'm trying to play something. So that's really satisfying. I don't know. I mean, I don't have like super specific goals. I do actually like playing like electronica music, and I would love to do a set, and I've done it before, like a set with a DJ. I've done that. Like in Bali, I did an electric violin, standing on tables. Oh yeah, and had to wear something, and it was super fun. I didn't know what I was doing, but I said, let's do it. Yeah, so I'm kind of, I think, just looking forward to a variety of concerts, and I'm just looking forward to things that I can't even see coming, you know. I know there's going to be stuff that I can't, that I couldn't even imagine, so why limit myself? I think I'm just going to just keep doing what I'm doing, hopefully do it well, do projects, work with people that I enjoy and think are deeply good humans and musicians, and I think it will all be great. I hope.
I love I'm looking forward to the things that I can't see coming. And I think that's a great idea for everyone, and just a great viewpoint to take on, because we don't know what's going to happen, but the potential of wonderfulness there, it exists. So let's look at that with wonder and looking forward to it. So that's a great point to leave it. Caroline, thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you. Sorry I've asked you all these questions.
Like I said, I was a terrible date, and I just talked the whole time.
No, you're an awesome date.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope our paths cross, like also in person sometime, and we do something together, and just take care. And thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, cool. Bye, everyone. Bye, everybody.